fourth edition of the Tiny Lab Talks. Today we're going to talk about innovative gerontological and geriatric care, recognizing challenges and bringing good practice to a new aging world. Tiny Lab Talks are brief informal talks between researchers invited by the University of Aveiro and researchers of the University of Aveiro itself through the American Corner program on topics such as innovation, research, technologies and culture. The conversations take place at the University of Aveiro American's Corner Media Lab with the support of the US Embassy in Portugal. And why this theme, why this topic about innovative and gerontological and geriatric care? Well, we all know that the demographic aging is a global issue, placing new challenges to all societies and governments. So the number of people of 65 and over will almost double in the next 50 years. And while longevity is a great achievement, with many old adults highly functional, there are others with complex health chronic conditions that challenges the current approaches to care and to the long-term care. So innovation in the way we think, see, and design and organize long-term care is an actual issue at this time. So I want to give a warm welcome to our special guest, Professor Evelyn Granieri. She's Chief of Geriatric Medicine and Aging, New Presbyterian Columbia University Medical Center, and also to Professor João Tavares. He is professor at the School of Health Sciences of the University of Aveiro and research member of Aging C Group of the Synthesis. So I will start with a global question to Professor Granieri. We all know that aging and longevity is also seen as a burden to societies and governments as a cause of the increasing costs with the health care and the social systems due to the burden of chronic diseases and disability. However, aging and longevity is also a development fact, with older people not being a problem, but being a part of the solution.
Yes.
It's a triumph of the humanity and mainly from the last century, from the 20th century. So in your opinion, what does aging mean to development and what can be done to meet the challenges of the global age wave, particularly for those with complex healthcare needs?
Yes, it's a very complex question.
Yes, I know.
So I think we have to think about aging not in a box like this, but expand our thinking about aging. And I think we have to understand three things, important things. One is that aging doesn't happen to everybody at the same time, that we picked 65 years old as aging because in 1888, Bismarck in Germany decided that was the age when people got old. Mm-hmm. It's 140 years later, and it's not quite the same anymore. And I'll just talk about that in a second. But the second is that as you get older, this is for everybody out there, after you pass around age 20 to 30, your body starts to age. And then, so everybody is getting older, starting at around 20 to 30. And everybody ages differently. And each of your organ systems ages differently. Your brain might not age the same as your heart, the same as your liver, the same as your muscles. And the most important thing is that as we get older, we have what's called decreased reserve. Everybody here knows that when you were 12, and you fell down and you hurt yourself, you got up and you ran around. If anyone has little children, you know they have a fever one day, the next day they're playing. different as you get older as a human, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, it takes you longer to get better. So that really is the challenge, and we have more older people because all of our doctor friends and researchers are making heart disease easier to treat, muscle disease, lung disease easier to treat. So people are living longer with more chronic diseases. Not everybody, some people are living longer just pretty healthy. So we have to think about aging different. We're thinking about aging, like you said, it's the people who have a lot of chronic issues, and that's the problems that we have to think about. For development, I have to say it offers a lot of opportunities. It offers opportunities in terms of people designing ways that older people can live better in the community, people designing ways in which we can treat different kinds of illnesses or diseases, designing ways that people can design different furniture, different community settings, designing ways, different curricula, so that all students can learn a little bit more about aging and how we can do it better. So I think, yes, there's a lot of challenges, and you're right that government has to pay more money as people get older. But a couple of things, maybe people don't have to retire at 65 or 70, maybe some people can work longer. Secondly, younger people and some older people can figure out ways that people can live in the community better and easier. And third, I think, very importantly for young people, you have to think about ways to appreciate and respect people as they get older, no matter how old they are. My age, I'm 66 years old. I'm very different than many 66-year-olds I know, but sometimes the same as some 80-year-olds that I know, and sometimes the same as some 40-year-olds. So we have to look at aging more globally. We have to understand that we have to respect people no matter how old they are, and we have to look for ways to make people's lives better. And that's the opportunity for development, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. And
just appointment. Sometimes the costs and aging, it's not very fair, because some of the healthcare costs, it's not about the aging, it's about other things like technology or like not so good practice.
Correct.
And we care older adults today as we care in the past, but many things is changed, and we must reinvite it, redesign the way we care.
Yes.
And in this perspective, I believe that the cost will not so much, and I think it's a fake news about aging when we think about aging and will be more costs for society. It's some kind of discrimination.
It is discrimination. And it's not, as I said, it's not just aging itself, it's the
it's
decline of
ageist for itself.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the diseases, it's the other
Yes.
challenges, not just about being an older person, but other things. And you are correct. There's a lot of discrimination.
Yes, yes. And
Well, we know that some of the challenges of the aging, and I'm focusing on these negative aspects, of course, because it's an issue, and I think there are too much to improve, even in high income countries. This is for Professor João Tavares, long-term care. It's a big issue, it's a big question, and long-term care is provided in several settings that range from the older person's home itself to nursing homes to hospitals. Altogether, they must provide long-term care, and it has too much room for improvement when we are talking about these issues. So, in your opinion, what are the main challenges that the actual longevity patterns pose to long-term care?
oh, it's not an easy question, but I will tell you my thoughts about it. First, we need long-term care. It's a reality because with the aging process, we need this kind of institution to provide a better care. And for some older adults, the family or the caregivers don't have the opportunity to provide the care. It's the first thing I think we need, but we need with better quality. How to get there? For me, the first issue is the development and education of workforce in these settings, especially for nurses, physicians, and other healthcare professionals. Many of the healthcare professionals or others don't have training or education in gerontology or geriatric. And it's a big problem. Second, it's to improve the image of these long-term cares, not only the institution, but for professionals that work there. The turnover in this kind of institution is very higher. Usually the people have thought that it's not a good place to work. I must, if I want to be successful, I must go to the hospital to
Cure.
Yes.
To cure, not to care.
And at this point, it's a big problem in Portugal in long-term care, the turnover, because we don't have teams that work and develop the quality, just go there, have experience, and go to another place. And we must improve the image of care older adults, like a big thing, like an important thing, and a very complex and specialization, sorry, process. And say, and we must, for me, the last point is to realize that the older adults in long-term care is changing the profile of these older adults, and we must
This is true for Portugal, very true for Portugal.
Yes, and I think the profile across the world, because the long-term care, we have many patients with higher levels of dependency. We must look to this patient with the palliative view in some points, and improve the way we do and the assessment. And other point very important, it's to look in the holistic view of these patients, not just with someone that need help in some daily activity, and promote independence, not promote dependency. It's the big problem of in this settings in long-term care. Usually the patient go with some level of functionality and lose very quickly this
That
reserve.
is a very important point. So, and well, Professor Granieri, you're an expert in geriatric care and person-centered care, integrated care, interdisciplinary approaches are seen as the gold standard of geriatric and gerontological care. But in fact, what does it mean? How can it be put in practice? How can we encourage, how can we enthusiasm health professionals, health organizations, even academics and even industry to create truly partnerships with patients and with their families?
Yes.
Could you give us some ideas of good practices in the US?
I will try.
Yeah, thank you.
May I comment on something that you said? But I think it's worldwide, long-term care. It's not very well respected. And the biggest problem we have in long-term care is that almost all of the people who live there have dementia or cognitive impairment. And so they don't get better. They lose their function not just because they're in long-term care, but because they have dementia. That is a huge problem. It is a huge problem with care of older adults. I want to put this forward. I think that people can age and age generally well until they start to have dementia. And dementia happens in about 50% of people who are 85 and above. And that's the fastest growing segment. And that's the challenge with geriatric care. You're correct. We want to make it person-centric. We want to make it family-centric. It's not just the patient himself, because once they have dementia and they have functional impairment, we have to involve the family and other caregivers. So we try and do this, at least where I practice and in many places in the United States. We have an interdisciplinary team that includes the nurse. You don't have nurse practitioners in Portugal, but in the United States we have nurse practitioners. their advanced training in geriatrics, or the nurses, social workers who are very important because we need them to help the families and we need them to help figure out how to get through the system, because like in Portugal and the United States, older people are all covered by national health insurance, Medicare. The physician, we have geriatricians, although much like you say, there are fewer and fewer geriatricians every year because it's not a respected profession as much care of older adults. And so when we see a patient initially, we look at their function, we look at their cognition, we look at their medical conditions, their diseases, their other kinds of illnesses. We look at their drugs, how many drugs they're taking, what kind of drugs they're taking. We look at their finances. We go to do a house call and we see if we can keep them at home. We have to do that as much as possible. And we look at their environment, who can help support them. We do that on every older person who comes in to our practice, and they're generally about 80 years old. And in this way, we keep them home as long as possible. We keep them as independent as possible. We take away as many medications as we can. And we also teach, if we can teach them, we can. If not, the family, that what end of life will look like. We have to start talking with people that life will end at a certain point, and when it should, when what we will do, and how we will be most respectful. Give them as much respect as possible at the end of their life. That's very important for our frailer old people.
Thank you for these important
Yeah.
things that you shared with us. It's now time to look at some of the questions
Okay.
posed by our chat channel. So for both of you,
Yes.
how technology are now improving the geriatric care in both the US and Portugal?
You go first.
Professor.
I think technology, it's very important. It can provide safety in many issues like prevention of falls, medication, and I think the technology is more aging friendly now, and it can be very important. But my thought about it, the older adults need technology, but we need to know the level of education, the level of informatic or technology literacy. It's important to, in Portugal, the older adults have the levels of education. Are not so great or so higher than in other countries, but. For me, it's very important, but technology must use this person-centered approach too. Not technology fit
Solution for everything.
everything. We must
Mainly the human approach.
Yes.
together.
Yeah.
If I might, so everybody here who's listening, you know, you probably don't even realize how quickly technology is progressing because you do it every day. So if we say to an older adult, okay, you can use your phone to do this, but the phone advances. Every new operating system is a different, and so they can't always learn the next thing. So we use technology for the caregivers, the people my age, your age, who are taking care of them. Because we find that when we put technology in the home of a frailer older adult who's a little cognitively impaired, it just sits there and they don't do anything with it. If we give it to the caregiver and we say, here, you can contact us and we will help you, then they will do it. And you're correct, it's all about education. And they don't have to be formally educated. Almost everybody knows how to use a phone in the United States, a smartphone. But you have to be very careful who you give the technology to and how quickly you advance it. Because once again, everybody here knows how quickly technology advances. And unless you can keep up, it's not helpful at all.
And let me, one point I think it's, you must, maybe a discussion, it's about ethical and technology with older adults. Because there are some things about autonomy, about dignity that we must respect and have a more holistic comprehension about these ethicals. And because many technology, the people, it's better for you, but it's better because I must know first what is better for me, what I want, what I like it.
Yes.
It's not
This
what
is
my caregiver.
This is person-centered
Yes,
approach.
it's
Okay. Okay, thank you. I don't know, anyone in the audience wants to make a question, please? Yes?
I would like to greet you and thank you for being here in Portugal. I hope you enjoy our
Yes.
country.
Very
I feel like my question is for both of you and for all of you. And I feel like it's important because it goes with the flow of the conversation right now, because we were discussing the need that for older patients to be more independent on their choices related to health. And recently Portugal approved the vital will, so the vital testament. I don't know if that exists in the United States.
No, but keep.
It's Advanced Life Directives.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Yes.
it's a document
Yes.
all people can. Okay, so I feel in my previous clinical practice, I'm a psychologist, and I used to work in palliative care.
Mhm.
And I feel like physicians usually refrain from exposing this document to their patients.
Mhm.
And usually younger people are adhering to this document and
Mhm.
are informed.
Mhm.
And how can we change this paradigm?
Maybe it's a generation thing.
It is both, I
Yeah.
think. So we do this with every one of our patients, but it takes time. And a lot of doctors, for the most part, don't have the time or don't want to spend the time explaining everything. Nobody wants to hear they might die, but when you really talk to older adults, they do want to understand. Their families want to keep them from it, but they do want to understand.
I do some training in the US,
Yeah.
and the first thing I realized it's so different. It's Advanced Life Directives, because usually we don't
Yes, I
have
know.
this practice.
We didn't either. When I started geriatrics 20 years ago, nobody talked about it. But now it's on TV all the time, it's on talk shows, reality TV, and so people in the US talk about it more. And I think it will take time here.
Yes, my experience is that older adults like to talk about end of life,
They do.
but usually the professionals are not prepared to have this kind of conversation, because many of these older adults have some personal lost someone, have the wife and someone
Yes.
they lost, and when you look to your life and see, oh, I'm so old, what I expect, I know
Yes.
I will die someday, and
Yes.
they want to talk about, but we are not prepared to this kind of question.
We have, I should tell you, we have a curriculum for health students, for the nurses, for the social workers, for the psychologists, for the doctors. This is how you do it. And we have standardized patients, and we have the family, and every day I teach this at work, at school, and they get better. They get better, but it has to be a curriculum, and you've started already, right? So
Yes.
it will happen.
So we talk about the significance and the importance of education of the healthcare professionals and social care professionals also. So if I ask you what is the 3 key things, 3 facts that any health professional should know about aging, what Professor Granieri should say? I'm thinking about delirium, I'm thinking about frailty, I'm thinking about the problem of polypharmacy, for example.
Right. First thing is that not all people age at the same rate. I think you have to really, that you have to start with that. Secondly, the things, once people get older, things you have to think about is their cognition. Everyone should know, every healthcare clinician, psychologist, it doesn't matter, everybody should know how to do an evaluation of someone's cognition. It's very easy. Second is function. Everyone should know how to check an older adult's function. Can they walk? Can they go to the store? Can they do all the things that should keep them at home? And the third is, you said, polypharmacy. It's a very huge problem in the States. It is equally important here in Portugal. And although the doctor is the only one who can prescribe, everyone should know that drugs can impact how people function, and badly. So they should know if someone has 12 drugs sitting on the table, it's not a good thing. They need to talk to the doctor. But I think that all healthcare professionals should know how to do a cognitive exam, how to do a basic functional exam, and refer to a physician if you think they're taking too many medications. I think so.
Thank you. Do
Thank
you want
you.
to have
I
to say
completely
what you-
agree. One thing I think it's important, everyone, it's fight against aging discrimination in all settings, in all society, in the universities, in the education,
Yeah.
in the public system, in the healthcare system. There are a lot of older adults. The care provided to older adults usually don't respect the dignity of
Yes.
this kind of patient. We must fight. We must go. It's not only about elder abuse, but all this kind of aging discrimination in the work, in everywhere. I think it's a key point. The second is the assessment and management of geriatric syndromes,
Yes.
the common geriatric syndromes. How to look these older adults. Usually, I give this example. Assessment of older adults is like look to the iceberg. You just see one thing, but you must look
Yes.
everything and look everything. It's just not the functional domains, but the psychological, social, financials. Have a picture, have
Big picture.
a technological 3D vision. And the first thing, it's frailty. Frailty, it's not only the frailty, but it's how to prevent, how to assessment, first of all, it's a big issue. How to prevent, because if we can catch if someone finds a solution to prevent frailty, we provide better life,
Yeah.
I think.
And can I add one other thing? I think that we have to guard against blaming older people for getting sick. Maybe they didn't live there, maybe they smoked too much, or maybe they gained weight, or maybe they got diabetes or high blood pressure. It's not their fault. I mean, this is what happens in life. People grow up, they get middle age, they get older age, and at a certain point, they die. This is life. And so I think we have to approach people with great respect throughout the life cycle, and that the life cycle ends with death, and we have to learn how to appreciate and approach that also while we give respect throughout the life cycle.
Yes, and
let-
this lifespan view,
Yes,
it's very
this lifespan-
important. Not look
Yeah.
older adults, but
Yeah,
look
throughout.
This is an important aspect, and to finish, I think we have more time for one question,
Okay.
and let's finish with the good news. And we have also good news about aging and longevity, is that research has consistently demonstrated that poor disability and health do not have to be a fatal consequence of aging. So healthy behaviors and social determinants can play a significant role across the lifespan. So, in your opinion, for you two, what are the greatest challenges to health policy and governments to allow healthy lifestyles, because they don't depend only of the person, but in this biopsychosocial perspective, and to delay the morbidity for the later years? What are the big challenges for governments and health politics in this sense?
I think government has to be involved in education
Yeah, of course.
for everyone. We have to get very involved with it. They have to make sure that there are safe and secure places for
Yeah,
older adults to get out and
age-friendly.
walk.
Yeah.
That there are places to sit down occasionally. You don't have to walk a mile to the next bench. They have to provide some funds to community organizations that get people up and moving and talking and interactive. I think there needs to be some more interaction, government funded with school students at every age. You have older adults mixing with children, with young adults, with middle-aged adults, those kinds of things. And I will pass to you because we only have.
One thought, fight poverty. If you fight poverty in every life course, you will be older adults more healthy and more happy.
Yes, throughout the life cycle, not just
Yes, during the
Yes.
night.
Thank you both for participating. We also thank the support of the US Embassy in Lisbon. And the next Tiny Talk will happen soon. Stay tuned to our social media networks to attend in the next talk. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
You are very good.
Oh, professional. No.